Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and this video is going to be a little bit different than my usual content on internal family systems. But it's still in alignment with checking in with your body, checking in with your inner family, checking in with your capital S self, your wise and loving uh, core essence, and following your inner guidance, your intuition, your authenticity. And this is an example from my life, and I'm never prescribing my experience to you. I'm just sharing kind of this process of experimenting with things and learning how to listen to my own body, which has been quite a journey. It's much harder than it seems. There's so many parts that block the way to that. This video is about an experiment, a 30-day experiment I did with the carnivore diet. And if you're not sure what that is, I'm going to tell you all about it, why I did it, what it is, how it went for me, how it morphed along the way, and my takeaways from it. And I wore this shirt, N equals one, because this is really the motto for this and for really everything in life. I strongly believe that the sample size of our experiment is one. So N is the sample size equals one, and that we are each a scientist of ourselves because you can read all kinds of studies that this or that worked for 75% of people, but you might be in the 25%, right? You might be in the 1%. And so, really listening to your body will change and your needs will change over time. So, you won't even necessarily have the same conclusion forever, right? It's just a constant being present, listening to our bodies. So, many of you may know, I'm going to tell you why I decided to do this experiment with the carnivore diet because I have done all kinds of, I tried vegan for a while. It was really important to me. I have such a heart for animals and for life, and I really, really wanted to be able to sustain myself without eating animals. But that had really negative side effects for me, both physically and mentally. And so I knew that I had to have some protein, but I was trying to have very little protein. And I was essentially on kind of a paleo-esque type diet, eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and whole foods. But I would eat I had some regular staples that were processed foods in there as well. Um, but recently, some of you know that I had a lot of stress in my life, a lot of prolonged stress. And when we are in that state, when I was in that state of essentially fight or flight for weeks and weeks and months on end, just another thing after another thing that kind of ignited that stress response, that fight or flight response over and over again. Not only did I have adrenal fatigue, the adrenaline and the cortisol that was being produced was kind of just running out. It also affected my body in many ways because when we are in fight or flight, as you may know, we are not in rest and digest in the other part of our nervous system. So I wasn't able to rest and I wasn't digesting my food very well. So what it looked like for me was a lot of imbalance. I had I was going to say the worst symptom, but there were some pretty big ones that were equally big. One was what you would call inflammatory bowel disease, what many would call that, whether ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, I'm not sure. But, and this might be too much information for you, but my, so you could pass through this if you don't want to hear about my bowels. But I had very intense pain whenever anything would kind of move through my intestines. I'm not sure if it was just in my colon or also in my small intestine, but there was intense pain to where it would be debilitating. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. I often would be laying down and I felt like I was going to pass out while I was laying down. And I would have alternating constipation, diarrhea, and had blood in my stool, which was very concerning, causing more stress. And it's kind of a cycle in that way, right? Like the fear of the actual body's response then creates more stress. It creates more of the symptom, fear symptom loop. So that was definitely happening. Um, so that was one thing. I was having regular panic attacks, um, sometimes several in one day, several in a week. And I've learned kind of what to do when I have panic attacks. I shake uncontrollably. My husband comes and holds me and helps me breathe and regulate, and eventually it passes. But it's still very concerning because when I have a panic attack, I feel like I'm going to die every time. Every time I'm convinced that I'm about to die. And so it feels like I've come back to life over and over and over. And I have to keep reminding myself, even though I look healthy and, energetic and okay right now in this video, I may have a panic attack tonight and feel like this is the end. I'm about to die. And it's convincing every time. But I have learned to write it out and what to do, but it's still very difficult. And often, sometimes before the panic attack, sometimes after it, I have a collapse response, which is really immobilized. Like I can't move, I can't speak. And then I have these fears that I can't even get myself off the bed to go to the bathroom. What's going to happen to me, right? There are anxious parts that then that loop happens over and over. There were other symptoms as well, migraine headaches, jaw pain, you know, clenching the jaw, back pain, had severe back pain for a few days. And so all kinds of symptoms going on. As this was happening, I mean, I literally felt like there were parts of me that were saying, you are, so I have a really big inner critic that says you're a poor excuse for a human, right? Like you're dependent, you're a burden. My husband doesn't ever express that I'm a burden at all. It's my own parts that feel like if I'm dependent on someone, I'm a burden, right? And it felt like I was this dead weight that was just being carried around, and I would need people to make food for me and to bring things to me and to lay in the bed. And, during this time, so much was happening. We had to travel for different reasons, and I would just be laying in the front seat like I was passed out, Um, and it was really, really stressful for me having to go places and travel and be in this state, this collapsed state where I felt really, really unstable. Um, Dizziness, fatigue, or feeling like I was going to faint, that was all part of it as well. So this was going on for months and months because the sources of stress were not stopping. And it was, I felt incredibly desperate. So the worst symptom for me at the time was that I was having this really huge pain in my intestines and this blood in my stool. And I thought that was also connected to me feeling so fatigued and drained. So I started watching videos on YouTube, as you do, and someone said that their inflammatory bowel disease, or many people said that it was cured through going on a carnivore diet. So I began to go down that rabbit hole and look at there's all kinds of people that, if you're familiar with carnivore, are kind of the spokespeople for carnivore. There's Dr. Ken Berry. There's, of course, Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson. There is Joseph Saladino, which we'll talk about. There's many, many others. So I started watching those videos, and my husband wanted to do this with me. Now, we were doing it for two different reasons. I would say we were both doing it for health, to help us in our health. But for me, it was like I was having all of these autoimmune conditions. I was having just, I wanted my life back. I wanted my energy back. I wanted to be able to have a normal life again. And for my husband, he wanted to be able to lose some weight, also for health. And carnivore is also very, very effective in losing weight. I did not want to lose weight. That was a negative side effect for me. But but so now that's why I was desperate. I wanted to heal my inflammatory bowel, panic attacks, collapse response. So there's different kinds, kind of different levels of carnivore. I'm just going to explain very basically, but probably the most strict would be what's called the lion diet that was coined by Michaela Peterson. And she also did it for autoimmune conditions and mental health and found that it's essentially a very extreme elimination diet. And I think it's very effective in that sense. You're taking out most of the foods that you eat. So in the lion diet, you would only eat meat from a ruminant animal, like cows, goats, um, things like that. Meat from a ruminant animal, water and salt. That's it. And it's interesting because I was always told that if you ate meat, that that was what would affect your intestines negatively. That was not the case for me. When I started eating only meat and only animal products, I wasn't that strict. So the next one, which if you look up Dr. Ken Berry, he'll tell you kind of the basic carnivore diet. It's funny. Different people have all the, they have, you can drink coffee. No, you can't drink coffee. It's from a plant. Plants will kill you, those kinds of things. People are pretty dogmatic in the community, but kind of the straightforward carnivore diet is you can eat any kind of animal or animal product. So that would include ruminant animals like cows and goats and sheep, but it would also include pigs and pork and chicken or turkey, fish, any kind of seafood, and as well as eggs. And then you might add dairy, right? Cheese and milk. So you have a little bit more to to work with there, a little bit more variety, which was an issue for me, not having variety. Um, so so I tried that, the basic carnivore, animal products and water for I would say I think it was about 3 days. And first of all, the huge things that I was experiencing went away. So in that sense, it worked. I had no more pain in my bowels, no more blood in my stools, no more irregular bowel movements, um, and my panic attacks stopped. So that was incredible and wonderful. But I still felt incredibly weak. And I would feel, instead of it being sporadic, it was all the time. And I hated eating. I did not want to eat. There's this thing in the carnivore world where um, I would say it's like people pride themselves in only being able to eat one meal a day, right? Or two meals a day. And because I had blood sugar issues, I was needed to eat every 3 hours, or I felt like I was going to pass out. And I remember being really, really confused. I was like, because people would say, well, how do you deal with blood sugar? They would say you need to have more intermittent fasting. You need to go longer without food. But I said, but that's the issue. I can't go without food, or my body will literally collapse and pass out. And it feels very scary. So I'll tell you at the end kind of how I overcame that. Because it was a genuine question for me. I was looking at people, I was watching videos constantly, and originally I was watching people who were, these muscular bodybuilder guys. I was like, I'm not doing this to lose weight, to build muscles. I'm doing this because I want to survive and have energy. So I started trying to watch more content creators who were women who were doing it for autoimmune issues or for hormone balance or blood sugar balance. Um, because, and a side note, you may know this if you've heard some of my story. I do, when I have issues, I do go in and listen to my body and my inner family and ask what is going on. And it's incredible the way the wisdom comes in very clearly. So about a year ago, I did ask, I've had these symptoms um, in, various extremities over the last several years. And so I went in and I asked, and it was very clear. I was shown a triangle image, and it showed me that the 3 points of the triangle were stress and anxiety at the top, and then hormone balance on one side and blood sugar balance on the other. And it explained, it didn't say it in words, it was just like this clear download, like a knowing that these three all affect each other. So when there's more stress, it affects the hormones get imbalanced, and then the blood sugar is affected and it's also imbalanced. And after watching several videos, I understand why now. It's so fascinating that my body or my inner wisdom showed me this. And then I looked at videos and it explained exactly why that is absolutely true. And I was experiencing that in my body for sure. So I wanted to find people who were having similar experience, right? And what was happening for them on carnivore. So that is what ended up leading me to Joseph Saladino, who is taboo for some people in carnivore, but he created a less strict carnivore diet that he calls protein based. And it's kind of, or animal based, maybe. Maybe it's called animal based because a lot of people talk about plant based, right? And so he talks about animal based. And this includes, again, it's very high in protein and animal products, um, bacon and eggs and steaks and salmon and all of those things are the primary source of nutrients. And then he also added fruits and roots. So lots of different kinds of fruits, um, like potatoes, root vegetables, and some honey. And he also has dairy. I do not consume dairy right now. I've tried some raw cheeses, which I think my body's okay with, but we'll see. But regular dairy gives me all the inflammatory bowel issues. So I do not do dairy. And again, that's for me because n equals one. I'm not prescribing anything for you. If you are thriving and doing well, and you are on a totally vegan diet, I would say more power to you. I wish I could do that. And that's wonderful. If you are, I would even say, gosh, if you're doing the standard American diet and eating all processed food and you feel great, more power to you. That's fantastic. Um, but I was trying to find this connection, find how at least this piece of health, how to um support my body in the best way that I could. So, okay. So I'm watching people who now Joe Saladino, he was not necessarily doing it for autoimmune issues and things like that. But there were many other women I was watching who talked about especially this blood sugar issue and that you need to start by eating every 3 hours and by having some carbs in your diet. And your body will naturally heal, and then it will tell you. And this is actually the key that I want to say in this video, is that your body will tell you what you need and when you need it. The hard thing is that we've been so disconnected from our bodies. And initially, when I started the first few days, I was not hungry ever. Uh, the hunger signal to me was that I felt like I was going to pass out. I never felt hungry. I just felt like I was going to pass out. And then I thought, ooh, I should eat something. Right. So, so probably around day 4, I started adding just fruit. So it was all meat and fruit. And what I discovered later, why I was feeling so incredibly weak, was that my body needs a minimum of about 2,000 calories just to run, to like lay down and think and just move my hands a little bit as I talk, right? A minimum of 2,000 calories a day, and I was eating 1,000 calories a day. So I was losing weight. I was not functioning. So I started, I only counted calories for I think a couple, 2 or 3 days to figure out how much I needed to eat to get my minimum calories in so that I could function. But with just eating meat, even with just eating the meat and the fruit, I could not get enough calories. It was so hard for me. I had a meat aversion. I did not want to eat meat. I didn't want to look at the meat. Um, and I was like trying to force myself to eat the meat. Um, I don't want to give it away, but now I'm thriving now. And what I'm doing now is listening to my body about what it wants to eat and when. And even when I was doing meat and fruit, I've been watching all these videos about, just eating meat, you're getting most or all of your nutrients, they would say, and you should thrive and you should be okay on it. Carbs are of the devil. If you eat carbs or plants, um, it's like you're cheating, on your diet. And so there was this shame involved with even when I would have my meat and then I would eat a little bit of fruit. And honestly, I would eat the fruit in order to be able to eat the meat. I would take several bites of the meat and then I would have some fruit to help me then be able to eat some more meat. But I still felt like, oh, I'm cheating by having this fruit. Is it too many carbs? Is it too much sugar? Is this what's causing my problems? And I realized that like approaching it from that fear base was the issue itself because it was the fear and the anxiety and the stress that was causing all of these issues in my body. And so having stress around a diet then was just another stress. Um, but I did continue on with the meat and fruit until about day 28. I started adding just for the last few days, I added roots, carrots. I had some spinach and a little bit of rice. I'm looking at my notes. But again, it was Whole Foods and that it was those last 3 days when I started listening to my body. And I said, what do you want? What do you need? Just show me, just give me the positive body compass. Ooh, I want this. And what it wanted was carrots and spinach. And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to give you. Um, so I know I'm kind of a little bit all over the place, but I talked a little bit about the benefits of it. Um, I really did feel like it put my inflammatory bowel disease into remission. Towards the beginning, was not having panic attacks, and that was fantastic. That's why I kept doing it, even though I was completely depleted and fatigued and hated eating, um, and had no joy in my life. I kept doing it for those reasons because I just so badly wanted to not have those two big symptoms, especially. But it also brought on some new symptoms. And these are very common. You can look them up in the carnivore world. One is when you're only eating meat, you're not getting enough magnesium. And so I would get leg cramps. And then that would also then uh, make me not sleep very well, which is foundational to hormone health, stress reduction, and blood sugar balance. So, so it was causing it started causing more and more problems because I was not sleeping very well, not sleeping very well. So, and then I was also very weak and depleted because I wasn't getting enough electrolytes. I started supplementing with electrolytes, supplementing with magnesium. And it's kind of the same thing that I felt when I tried vegan. When I tried doing vegan but I had to supplement with all of these vitamin B supplements and fish oil, or well, I guess it wouldn't be fish oil. I don't know omega 3s and things like that. that you can't get from plants. So I had to try to supplement them. And I thought, this doesn't seem right that as a human body, I need these nutrients and I have to supplement. So it felt the same way, like just like cutting out meat altogether was extreme for me and didn't really work for me. Cutting out everything but meat was also just another extreme. Um, I needed the electrolytes, the magnesium, the nutrients that come from some plants. So what I feel now about carnivore is that one, it's fantastic for being an elimination diet. Just basically going to the basics. There, for me personally, and again, it's everybody's different, and so it's all an experiment. But for me, meat and eggs, and of course water, did not have any negative effect on me and my intestines, my uh, the processing of my food. So, so starting with that, I don't know, maybe for a week, making sure you're getting enough calories, and then gradually adding things back to see does it affect me? Does it irritate my bowels? Does it cause different side effects? I think it's a wonderful thing to have an elimination diet, but for me, definitely, it's not something that I want to continue. Now, for some people, I know Michaela Peterson talks about the fact that she has, oh, there's a bee. Hi, bee. It came in the window. Hello. He went back out. Um, so yeah, if you or someone like Michaela has really, really intense autoimmune issues and really, really intense mental health issues, and you're thriving on eating only ruminant meat, salt, and water, gosh, I think it's wonderful. Go ahead and do that. Um, for me, I I believe that what happens for me is that when I have intense stress and prolonged stress, then my body is not digesting well. And so I cannot eat certain foods. So I can go back on this elimination diet and then gradually add things back. But the number one thing is reducing the stress, um, giving myself rest. During the most difficult times of these last few months, all I could do was lay on my bed. I put this black mask over my eyes, over my face, and just cry and just lay there and sometimes listen to hypnosis or meditation, listen to calming music, uh, breathe, listen to my parts, just be there with and in the suffering. And that was all I could do. And then that would give me, you know, this much energy to make it this much. People say take one day at a time. I was literally taking like one moment at a time. It felt like I wasn't going to survive the next moment. And all I could do was take a breath in this moment, surround the suffering with loving intention, and keep on doing that. Because the stress was just so immense. And it wasn't until, um, you know, we got in our van and we went to the mountains and a lot of the stresses were over and my body could relax that things have really been resolved. And then I can listen to my body and I can say, what do you need? What do you need in this moment? Do you need water? Do you need um, protein? What sounds good to you? And it will tell me, it will naturally tell me what I need and what it, will satisfy it and nourish it. So I do want to say that during this whole experiment, one of the influencers that I really liked, her name is Lily Kane, Lillie Kane, I think is Kane, and she's a nutritionist. What I love about her is that she definitely holds this concept of n equals one, and that everyone is different, and there's not a one size fits all diet for all the people in the world, and there's not a one size fits all diet for an individual for all time, right? And so we are an observer of ourselves and of our own body, and it's okay to experiment and to try things and to see how our body reacts to it, to see how we're going to thrive in this moment. So I really liked her. She has a video where she talks about how all of these nutritionists, authorities in the diet world, um, argue with each other, right? They think this is meat is the devil. No, plants are the devil. You have to eat this way. No, don't do this, do that. And what she did is she compiled the things that they all agree on. And I really love that because that's really kind of what my body has also showed me. And this is the benefit of this experiment on carnivore is that I feel like in this middle place of all these things that everyone agrees on, even vegan people, that you want to feed your body whole foods. That means there's only one ingredient. And now when I go and I look at a bottle of something and there's just a huge list of ingredients and a bunch of really long words that are clearly chemicals that I'm putting into my body, I think, ooh, no, no, I don't want that. I genuinely don't want it. I love now eating whole foods. It simplifies going shopping, walking just around the outside, um, seeing what my body wants to eat color wise, what fruits, what vegetables, what maybe whole grains, what meats. And right now, what I've settled on is I do need I did need way more protein in my diet to support my hormone balance and my blood sugar, um, and the foundational blocks I needed to handle stress. So now my diet is much, much higher in protein. Um, and Lily has a video also about kind of what she recommends, but it's not a one size fits all. So it's figuring out for you what works for you. But for me, eating about a pound of meat a day and protein. And then on top of that, whatever carbs or different things my body craves and wants to eat. But so it's kind of that piece of making sure I'm getting the protein and then the whole foods on top of that. But I've really eliminated all processed food from my diet. I can see clearly how added sugars and seed oils and all of these preservatives and chemicals do affect me negatively. And another kind of benefit of the carnivore diet is that having just had meat and really cutting out all sugar, even for a few days, oh my goodness, fruit tastes so sweet and so good. My husband and I, we would eat a slice of melon and we were just in ecstasy. I mean, we, we were like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is so good. I also want to say, mentioning my husband, he had a different experience on carnivore. He's still essentially, uh, I guess it's animal based, right? Mainly protein, fruits and roots. And he's thriving on it. He's losing weight. He's loving it. So, yeah, it's just so individual. Um, let's see, what are some of my other takeaways? And again, this is just for me, but what I realized was that it's not just about diet. That's a huge, huge thing is getting the nutrients that my body needs. So instead of, and I can listen to my body and it will tell me, which is amazing. But instead of thinking, um, what do I need to eliminate or how many calories do I need to get? Instead, looking at what nutrients does my body need to thrive, right? Am I getting um, calcium and vitamin D and vitamin B and magnesium and all potassium and all of those wonderful things that help run my body. So the way to get them, I have found, is really good sourced meats. And it's fascinating now what kinds of meats my body craves and that especially not having a lot of carbs, I need the fats, and I thrive on the healthy fats from meats, from avocados, olives, olive oil, those kinds of things. And I crave it. So it's fascinating to watch. And I do encourage you, if you want, to go watch that Lily Kane video about what they all agree on, because it is really fascinating. Um, Another thing that was so foundational, like I said, was sleep. And so I realized that one thing that keeps me up at night is, for a while there, I was having to wake up to pee 5 times at night, and then I wasn't able to get back to sleep. Partly, I realized because I hadn't been giving myself enough protein and carbohydrates during the day. And when I would wake up, my cortisol would rise and say, you need to eat, you need to eat. And so I couldn't go back to sleep. So eating enough, getting enough calories and nutrients during the day. Um, and then uh, I'm experimenting right now with only drinking for the first 10 hours that I'm awake. And I've tried that for the last 3 days, and I've only gotten up twice in the middle of the night instead of 5 times, which is amazing. It helps me sleep. And when I sleep well, I often say that sleep is the most foundational physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social practice, getting enough sleep. So, however, I can support that. Um, And definitely getting enough magnesium has helped with that as well. Um, and really making time, I'll say just two more things, that takeaways for me. And again, this is personal to me, but it might help you as well. It is stress reduction. And sometimes, like these last 3 months, we just had so many life events back to back to back that felt I wasn't choosing it, right? It wasn't like I felt like I didn't have a choice in it. But really, what I did have a choice in is to make time, and my body made me do this, but to stop, to rest, to take naps, to meditate, to do qigong, um, to get out in the sun, in nature, anything that helped me, my body go into that state of rest and digest. Prioritizing that is so, so important. So yes, it's nutrients for my body, but it's also so important to support my body's rest and digest response. And the last thing I'll say that was really interesting to me was what I was talking about. The blood sugar issue was such an enigma for me, because people would say you need to go longer without food, and that's how you'll fix your blood sugar issue. I was like, but you don't understand. The reason I'm eating regularly is because I have a blood sugar issue. And so I would hear one, you know, authority over here say, if you have blood sugar issues, you must eat every 3 hours. And then I would hear an authority over here in this ear saying, you need to fast, and that's how you get rid of it. So I'm like, okay, which is it? Which is it? And just like with everything in life, there are so many voices. There are so many authorities, right? If you look up something on Google now, I love this. The AI, you'll look up a question and it'll say, you know, this source says this thing about it. And this source says the exact opposite thing. This source says raw milk is dangerous and has bacteria in it that will kill you. And this source says raw milk is one of the safest and most nutrient dense foods that you can have. So if you listen to authorities outside of you, you're going to hear just very opposite competing messages. But if you listen on the inside to what is true for you, that answer will not be from a place of fear. It will feel calm and clear and confident. You'll have just immense clarity about it. So, so what I realized with the blood sugar issue is when I went in and I asked, it showed me 7 years ago when I was in the hospital for 6 days and they had me on morphine for 6 days. when I got home, I went through withdrawals. It was so difficult to function. I couldn't function. It felt like I have to have this morphine or I can't survive. I can't live. It's very hard to explain, but it gave me so much empathy for people who are addicted to any kind of drug. Your body goes through these withdrawals. And what I realized in that moment was that to go through those kind of withdrawals, you have to have support. You have to have someone who is doing everything for you, feeding you. My husband would rub my back when I couldn't sleep at night, comforting you. Like I needed so much help because I had to go through this very unstable period to get to the other side of the withdrawal and to be stable again. And I needed support during that period. That's the same thing for me with the blood sugar issue. It's like my body is detoxing from having these spikes in blood and insulin and then down and low blood sugar like this. It's going like this, and in order to extend the period of time between eating, I have to go through this period of feeling like I'm going to die, I'm going to pass out, and I need immense support I needed it from my husband, for several days to say, okay, I'm going to wait from breakfast to lunch and I'm not going to eat anything in between. But I feel like I'm going to collapse. I don't even have the energy to make my lunch. Before, I used to have to eat a hard-boiled egg to have the energy to make my breakfast. I'd have to eat a stick of beef jerky to have the energy to make my lunch. Um, and so I had to rely on someone else to help me wait out that period and just lay on the bed and collapse until I could gradually push it further and further. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with eating every 3 hours. Or, I mean, now sometimes now what I do is I listen if it's been 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 15 minutes, my body says, hey, I really want another piece of bacon. Hey, I really want um, a banana. I really want some carrots right now. It's so fascinating. I mean, my body will say, I need handfuls of spinach, and I'll go eat handfuls of spinach. And it doesn't matter what time it is or what it is. Really, the only kind of, I don't want to call it a rule, but is thing that I want to abide by is that it's a whole food. Um, and anyway, I've been rambling quite a while about this, but that's my experience. Again, it's always an experiment of one. And so what I'm hoping with this rambling is to inspire you to experiment when your body is telling you that there's something wrong. When you can go in and listen and receive answers, and then you can moment by moment ask what it needs. And there were time and time again I would go in and ask, and it would show me like a gas gauge and that the tank was on empty. And it was like I need rest, I need nutrients, I need to be filled up. And time and time again it would say, I just need to sleep. I need to sleep for days. Right? And it's another question of the parts that would block me from listening to my body. And I might make another video about that because it's been fascinating to really get in touch with. There's so many different types of parts that have learned that it's not safe to be in touch with my own guidance system, right? I've got to listen to the authorities or I've got to please the people. There's all the shoulds, and they block that connection with my inner guidance. Last thing I'll say, my husband Brian has been so, so, so incredibly supportive and helpful to me through this time. And one of the most beautiful things he said to me was, we have this thing where when something's really important to us, we'll say it's a 10 for me, right? Or hey, this is a 5, or this is about a 3 for me. But he said, it's a 10 for me that you are listening to your body. And I want to follow. I want to follow what your body is telling you because he knows that I have so many parts that will override my body. And a big part a big group of those parts is the people-pleasing parts. And so what he did was he appealed to the people-pleasing parts to say, you will please me if you let Christine listen to her body. And that was one of the best gifts anyone's ever given me. Thank you, Brian. I know you're watching this. And so I'll do another video about all the different parts that have blocked me from listening to my body and how uh, this journey of befriending them and exploring with them and experimenting with them to see what if, what if we took that leap of faith and listen to the body and do what it's asking, and see what happens. So, okay, that was really long. If you have any questions about my experience or you want to share about your own experience, please do that in the comments below.